freeze-dried food, it's pre-built survival kits, it's water filtration or storage. This, for example, is our...
Xenia Platten sells earthquake kits at the Total Prepare store in Victoria. She says sales tend to go up every time there's a significant earthquake.
Yeah, we've been seeing a bit more foot traffic and a few more phone-ins with questions and things. Online traffic's ticked up a little bit, yeah.
The earthquakes are happening.
It stems from the series of morning aftershocks off BC's central coast, enough to jolt some out of bed.
The closest community is about 200 kilometers from the earthquake, so we wouldn't expect them to feel them strongly, but certainly to give them a little bit of a nudge.
The good news, no tsunami, no damage, and no injuries.
Is this an earthquake?
But further down the west coast, a more dramatic scene just hours before. Aftershocks are still shaking Southern California following the biggest earthquake there in 20 years. Despite the timing, though, seismologists say there's no connection to the quakes in Canada.
These are very active faults all along the western coast of the Americas, and they have earthquakes almost daily. So the fact that there were two somewhat larger earthquakes within the same week is purely coincidence.
Still, coincidence is enough to prompt an urgent reminder.
We live in a seismic zone. People should have an emergency preparedness plan for their own house.
I'm not at all prepared. I have nothing. We have a pantry downstairs that has loaded with food and candles.
My wife and I have a plan on where we'll meet up, but that's about the extent of it.
The BC government says the province itself is constantly reassessing its own preparedness.
There's additional monitoring that has been taking place off the west coast through sensors that are going to be going on the surface of the ocean. We've also been engaged in a significant upgrading, over $1.5 billion being put into seismically upgrading schools, for example.
All critical steps given the repeated warning that it's not a matter of if, but when we'll have to deal with a major earthquake disaster. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.